Welcome back to the channel. My name is Hart for those of you that are new. And today we have a massive 12-game NBA slate here on DraftKings for Wednesday nights. I'm going to be breaking this down pretty quickly here for you guys, kind of talking through who I like, who I don't like, an early look player pool. As always, injury news does shape the entire slate, so you can't really build your lineup until about 15 minutes before the slate starts is when you should probably start looking into building your lineup and keeping up with all the injury news. So let's hop right into it. For tonight, I played Brooke Lopez, who was 1% owned, and I don't think he had more than 13 fancy points all night. Worst game of the season. That is how my night went. So very annoying stuff. But moving on to Atlanta versus Charlotte here. Obviously, fantastic matchup here. Atlanta coming off of a tough game there where they gave up the lead versus the Bulls. And they a bad game for them. Trae Young, obviously 3 of 14, still went for 45 fantasy points. So Trae Young always looks like a really good spend up, especially in this spot here. I don't mind getting DeJounte Murray. They really haven't been playing too well together. Usually Trae Young's the one who's going off. DeJounte can have those random pop off games, but fantastic matchup here. It's hard to not like at least one of these guys. Right now I do think I'm going to land on Jalen Johnson, even though he's kind of the third option / fourth option at times. He should be in line to see monster minutes. It's a great, fast paced matchup for him here. So absolutely love getting to at least one of the main three guys for the Hawks. Okongwu is out, so that's big news because Capella was out as well. So we should be getting Bruno Fernando starting at least and playing hopefully mid-teens minutes. I don't know if it's one of those things where they're going to extend him and have him play like mid-20s, even 30s minutes. Could be a case where they just go small. Charlotte, not the tallest team. They do have Nick Richards, but still, they could easily just go small and just have a guy like Jalen Johnson try guarding Nick Richards or Bruno Fernando, at least playing like 15, 20 minutes. But yeah, right now it's looking like you want to get to at least, a couple pieces here on the Atlanta side. I think CD Bay is fine, should play around 30-ish minutes. Bogdan, one of those guys who's kind of a scorer, did really well against the Bulls, but obviously does have a little bit of a floor there. And Trae Young didn't do the best. So, they were kind of feeding Bogdan there in that last game. And then Hunter off the bench should play mid-20s minutes. I mean, they're fine in GPPs, but still, I think your best bet is to go with at least one or two of the main three guys, for Young, Murray, and Johnson, and obviously Fernando. Even if he does play only 15 to 20 minutes at 3.6K, I do think it will be enough for him to kind of pay off his price tag there pretty easily. And then in terms of like the rest of the guys, they really don't have any other big men, so I do think they're going to go small, and it could just be more minutes for a guy like Hunter off the bench. On the Charlotte side here, LaMelo's still out, so once again, Miles Bridges is pretty much leading his team, doing everything he can, stuffing the stat sheet. So at 8.8K, doesn't feel great, but he's just stuffing the stat sheet. So really not too hard to land on him at that price tag. Brandon Miller, it's just, with this new team, as you can see, the minutes have not been great. He's not shooting the ball a ton, which you don't like to see because he was averaging like 25 for like 5-6 straight games. Actually, it was at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 straight games, and then since they made the trade, he's kind of fallen off a cliff a little bit here, so he's definitely very risky there at 7-1. I don't think I'm going to do it. It's hard to trust him with the addition of the new guys, just kind of taking up some usage. Nick Richards, 5.6K, same thing. The minutes just have not been great on him. Hard to trust him in this spot. I really like Trey Mann here, 27 minutes, 34. Didn't start off that last game shooting the ball too well. I think he was like 1 of 5. Turned it on in that second half there. But yeah, I mean, he's been stuffing the stat sheet, so it's really hard not to like him here. He's going to be super chalky, but for a good reason. If Cody Martin plays, I think it's fine if you land on him. One of those guys who was seeing good minutes. But once again, with the addition of these new guys, they're going to be spreading out the minutes. As you can see, Grant Williams has been playing 30 minutes back-to-back games. So at him at 4.3, that is very cheap, very interesting for him. Nick Smith has been seeing a little bit more steady of run. They also have Micic, who's been seeing 20 minutes past 2 games there. They also have McGowan, who they've still been playing a decent amount as well. So, actually, excuse me, on McAllen's. He hasn't played the past 2, but they still have Seth there, who they've been throwing out for a little bit there. So it's just like a lot of trash they've been throwing out there. So the main guys you want to focus on are Bridges, and I would say Trey Mann, and that's really it for me. I do like Grant Williams just because he's very cheap and he's playing 30 minutes. So I'd say those guys are your main guys you do want to target. Everyone else is just very risky plays. Moving on to Miami here versus Philly. Miami's had, once again, they're just very, very short-handed. Today, Jovic and Jovic and Duncan Robinson had the massive games. I think they both went for like 45 fancy points and blew out I forget who they play tonight, but they blew them out, which is surprising. So both those guys popped off. Hero did fine. Bam did pretty well as well. I think he did for 40 plus as well. So once again, Bam, Tyler, and Jaime and Martin all look really, really good. I think, you could throw Duncan Robinson into that group as well. He's been really good this year in terms of like starting and kind of picking up some usage when guys like, Bam or other guys are out. As we saw tonight, it's very score independent, but at times he can be, good at getting some peripheral stats. So I think you're going to want to stick with those main guys once again. And then off the bench, you could look to a guy like Highsmith. Not really sure how many minutes he played tonight. Or Jovic, who 3.1K, I'm sure he's going to be super, super chalky. Would not be surprised if he busts tomorrow, just with everyone being on him going for 40 plus tonight. And then tomorrow, wouldn't be surprised if he plays like 10 minutes, goes for like 5. So that's a risk there. But at 3.1K, if he's going to play massive minutes, hard not to really like him. So once again, it's a Miami Heat slate. Moving on to the Philadelphia's here. Maxey looks great at 9K. Tobias is out as of right now. Don't think that will change. So we can look to Oubre and Hield leading the team in terms of like the second and third option behind Maxey. Hield's been playing great minutes. Actually shot the ball really, really well the past 2 games after a rough first game there, 8 of 21. But yeah, he's been really, really good for them. Oubre, kind of the same thing. Both been really, really good. So, and they're really cheap. So if you don't want to pay up for Maxey, you can definitely pay down for both these guys. 6K range. They both look really, really good here, along with those Miami guys. So we'll just throw them in here for now, kind of showing you what, kind of a lot of people will build for this slate tomorrow. So we can try to get different from the build that we're about to build out. But in terms of the rest of the team here, Reed, I do think it's a fine option there at 5.8K. Looks like his minutes are going up a little bit more since being injured and a little bit sick. Mo Bamba is a pivot play. If you think Reed does bad or gets in foul trouble, they could definitely look to him. Campaign, seen, lows 20s minutes. I don't mind him as a valued 4,000. And that's really it. You could look to KJ Martin, who's seen, 20 plus minutes in the past 4 games, basically. Otherwise, that's really it. Moving on to the Knicks here versus Orlando. Once again, Brunson is him. Really, really strong spin up, but I just think there's better spin ups across the board. Guys who have the same high ceiling when it comes to points, as well as probably a better ceiling when it comes to assists, rebounds, blocks, and steals, but still 9.3K for Brunson is such a great price tag. DiVincenzo, 7.7, does feel a little bit pricey, but once again, playing a massive amount of minutes. Shooting ball a ton. I put him last slate, and he's pretty low owned. He's doing really well, and obviously got injured there with a hamstring. So if he's out, it just opens up even more usage to a guy like, I would assume Bojan is going to play more minutes there, and a guy like Burks are probably going to be the main 2 beneficiaries you want to target if there is no DiVincenzo. Now, if there's DiVincenzo, I'd say I just stick with DiVincenzo and Brunson. It's kind of my 2 main guys there. Precious is playing a ton of minutes, so it doesn't matter. His price is 6.9K, even though he's not that score independent, or that even though that he is kind of score independent. It's just a lot to like here for the Knicks, just because they're playing everyone massive amounts of minutes. But the best ones obviously are going to be Brunson and DiVincenzo, and if DiVincenzo's out, then it just raises the guys like Achua, even Hartenstein, Hart, Bogdan, and then Burks. And then McBride, as you can see, I'm playing a ton of minutes right now. Moving on to Orlando here. Really like Paolo, really like Franz. Offense is going to flow through both those guys. Wendell, an interesting GPP option there. And then, as I said, with the guards, I do think Suggs and Fultz actually both had a pretty decent night tonight. I think Suggs started off with like 4 straight threes, which really helped him out. But it's one of those things you can land on them in GPPs, but at the same time, they're just going to be playing mid 20s minutes. So it's hard to trust, any of them really popping off or getting a ton of minutes to be able to pay off the price tags that you want for like a GPP setting, especially on a 12-game slate. Moving on to Brooklyn and Boston here. Brooklyn side, you're going to want to target the main 3 guys here: Claxton, Thomas, and Bridges. Ben Simmons is ruled out. So we'll get a new addition into the starting lineup, which I'd assume it's going to be DFS. Let's see what the starting lineup will be. It'll be Bridges, Cam Thomas, Claxton. I would assume DFS, and then either they move in Schroeder or Dennis Smith Jr., and then obviously whoever starts, the other one would come off the bench. I think they're all firmly in play besides DFS. No interest in him, but the rest of the starting 5 and whoever comes off the bench, I think they're all really good options. And then we could look to a guy like Lonnie, who did pop off tonight, played a good amount of minutes, got really hot from the floor. 4,000 is a really good price tag for him if you want to take a GPP dart throw on him. Boston side, Tatum went off tonight. Porzingis was ruled out. Wouldn't be surprised if he's back for this game tomorrow, just because of back-to-back. Ruled him out for tonight, bring him in for this game tomorrow. So I do expect a fully healthy team here for them. And with that in mind, they're all kind of just secondary options for me. no real strong interest in anyone on this team just because I think there's just a lot of better options across the board in these first few games here. So I don't think there's a need to really get to this Boston side when they're all priced about right. Moving on to the Indiana Pacers here versus Toronto. Once again, Halburn is just way too cheap here. Minutes are finally gone into the mid 30 range. Played 34, went for 40, double there. He looks like just a fantastic spend up for this game tomorrow. Rest of the team, just secondary options for me. Not a lot of interest in these guys here. You could land in Naismith. You could land in Turner and GPPs, but once again, I just think it's better plays across the board. As you can see here, already in the lineup in terms of guys I want to get to in that 6K range. Moving on to Toronto here. Toronto side, they're there. If Barrett is out, then it does obviously raises the ceiling for guys like Quickly, Barnes, and the secondary score would probably be Bruce Brown, I would say, or Gary Trent Jr. A lot of interest in those guys if there is no Barrett. Now, if there's Barrett, all just secondary options for me. I think Portal would be the most interesting to me, even though his minutes are not the safest. And then, if there is no Barrett, then I do think Gary Trent, even though he's very score independent, would probably be the most interesting to me. Then I'd say Quickly after that, and then Scotty. And then I do think they've been slowly working in Baji here, as well as Grady Dick. So if you're looking for two very, very cheap plays, Grady Dick would probably be the best option out of those two, but they are there. On to Chicago here versus the Cleveland. Very, very tough game here for Chicago, who they really haven't been playing well. They've been winning a few games here, but Kobe White has been playing pretty bad, even though he's been playing up some pretty solid stats. 34, 37, not the worst, not the best, but still. You'd like a little bit more from him. But yeah, offense is going to run through these main three guys. As I always say, Kobe and Vooch probably have the safest floors and highest ceilings. Drozen slightly behind them. All three of them look really good. And they have been playing Drummond a good amount until the past two games. But he did play a decent amount in that Atlanta game. That kind of second half really kept him in the game there. And we saw with them playing Minnesota, they started that big lineup with him alongside Vooch. And they kind of did it against Memphis as well. I kind of see the same thing here for Cleveland. I mean, they have Jared Allen, they have Evan Mobley. I do expect them to split the minutes there or play alongside each other in that matchup. So I expect Drummond to play as many minutes as he can, kind of that 30 range there, like he did against Minnesota. And if that happens, we know the ceiling with him is massive. If they can keep this game close, if he can stay out of foul trouble, he looks way too cheap there at 5.9. So I really like him there. So let's just take out Jalen Johnson for now. And then we'll put in Drummond. And then moving on to the rest of the team here. Io had his career game there, scoring the ball that last game. I expect him to come back down to earth, but 5.2K price tag did not change. But with Drummond starting, we saw that last game when Drummond started and Io came off the bench. Drummond did really well, and Io against the Wolves did not do the best. As you can see, 29 minutes, but he wasn't as aggressive as he has been when he has been starting. So that's the only downside there, but I still think he's fine. But if Caruso is back, it does hurt the upside of Io a little bit. And if Caruso's off the minutes limit, I do think he's still a fine play. Torrey Craig is questionable as well. He started, but if I think, Caruso's back, I do think Torrey Craig might move back to the bench there. Moving on to the Cleveland Cavs here. Been an absolute massive heater for the Cavs here. As I always say, Donovan Mitchell is going to be your best play, and he's been playing like it. As you can see, went for 56 bomb even with a fully healthy team. You're going to be playing mid-30s minutes, going to lead the team in terms of usage. Rest of the team here, Allen and Mobley and Garland, I think they're fine. They do have upside. It's just, you don't feel great landing on them because they're priced about right. And they're kind of secondary options in terms of scoring behind behind Donovan Mitchell. I do think the price tag on Darius Garland is interesting. The minutes, I would wish they'd be a little bit better, but they have been blowing out some teams. So it's not like he's going to see extended minutes when that's happening. But 6.1 for him is pretty interesting. And off the bench, Karis LeVert is there. Strus has been not a lot of interest there. Moving on to Houston here versus Memphis. On the Houston side, it's just one of those things. As you can see, there's a lot of people who are very, very cheap. So it's going to be one of those things where you skip a lot of the teams on the slate tonight where it's just not a need to get to them unless you're trying to be very contrarian or have some pivot plays. Like Sengun, we know the upside there with him. Same with Green. I mean, Fred VanVleet's been out, so those guys have been really stepping up. Then Jabari Smith Jr. would probably be the main guy I target. Played 38 minutes, 37 back-to-back games, shooting into the mid-teens, which you like to see. And he does have double-double upside. So if he had the double-double there, he probably would have gone for close to 40 fantasy points, if not more. 5.8, that's very interesting. Good cheap price tag on him. Easton and Cam Whitmore have been out, which has just led to more minutes for guys like Brooks, Jeff Green, Aaron Holiday's been seeing a good amount of minutes the past 3 games there with those guys being out, not really having a point guard. So him and Jabari Smith-Jr. are probably my favorite plays there for the Houston side. Memphis side here, Triple J and Williams are the 2 best plays there. G.G. Jackson's a fine third option at 5.2K. And then with Scottie Pippen Jr. out, I would assume it's just more minutes to a guy Luke Kennard, Conchar, and I do think they bring Gilliard back from the G League and him at 3.9. I think it's a fine play. I don't think it's a must play. I think you really just want to stick with Triple J, Vince Williams, and then G.G. Jackson. Moving on to Washington here versus the Pelicans. They're there. I think Kuzma and Tyus Jones are the most interesting for me, just because they've shown the best upside of this team here. Otherwise, everyone is they're just there. They're just gross to land on Washington. Pelicans had a great matchup here. So if you want, to get different with kind of some of your spend ups, Brandon Ingram, CJ are there. That's really it. I mean, Murphy, interesting, but that's it. Moving on to the Spurs here. Victor, this man is an alien, unreal. 29 minutes, triple-double with 10 blocks. I mean, unreal. 80 bomb there, basically. 9.2K. He's always in play. Vassell has been playing very, very strong, as you can see here. Pretty much averaging 40 fantasy points the past 7-8 games. So if you land on him, don't mind it. And then Trey Jones has been interesting as well. Pretty much averaging close to 30 fantasy points. Has a little bit of room to go for a little bit more. So those are probably my 3 favorite plays there for the Spurs. On the Dallas side here, obviously the big news is Luke and Kyrie. If one of them misses, you're going to load up on the other one. And then look to a guy like possibly like PJ Washington to kind of step up in terms of Hardaway Jr. Otherwise, Gafford has been absolutely popping off. 17 minutes, 32 fantasy points, 24 minutes, 54. I mean, he's not going to keep it up. 5 blocks, 2 steals, but he's been popping off, which has been wild to see. But yeah, the big news here is obviously Luke and Kyrie. As we know, if one of them or both of them are out, good options to load up on the Dallas side. Lakers side here, they are playing tonight, so it'll be interesting to see if, possibly they do rest LeBron or AD. And it's a later game, so we could get that news very late, which, could open up, some of these guys like Russell Reeves, even Dinwiddie, even Hachimura, would all be fantastic plays here if that's the case. So you could get different by building around the possibility of one or both of those stars being ruled out. But if both are in, I think you'd want to get to at least one of them as a spend up if you are looking to pay up for someone. On the Utah side here, Stockton is probably the most interesting to me, even though the minutes, once again, have not been great. He's been super efficient in those minutes. That's just the issue there. Minutes have not been great, but he's been super efficient, so it's kind of evening out right now. But once again, 6.4K when there's just better options across the board. Don't think there's a need to really get to anyone on the Utah side. Sacramento, coming off of double-double, or back-to-back, excuse me. They're playing tonight. But once again, Sabonis, Fox look way too cheap here. Monk's always a strong GPP option. And I do think, once again, Keegan Murray is way too cheap at 5,000. Moving on to Denver, love Jokic at 11.3. Jamal Murray is questionable, missed that second half of the game. And I do think KCP did as well. If that happens, obviously they're going to start. Where do you go? Reggie Jackson, 5.7, which I don't love that price tag for him because you still have Jokic, you still have MPJ, you still have Aaron Gordon. All those guys will be ahead of Reggie in terms of the pecking order. So I don't really think there's a need to force Reggie into your lineup. I'd rather just get to Jokic or MPJ. And I do think Aaron Gordon's a fine play, but I'd really prioritize MPJ and Jokic. And I do think you could definitely take a shot on a guy like Julian Strother, who we've seen go off, kind of pop off, and that really, kind of the score off the bench role as we've seen throughout the season here. So that'd probably be the dart throw play if that happens. But otherwise, if Jamal Murray is back, I'd really just focus on Jokic and MPJ and possibly Murray if he's going to play full minutes. And then moving on to the last game here, Detroit, Phoenix. Once again, Cade, Jalen, and Jaden all 3 of them look very, very good, very, very strong. Do all feel a little bit too cheap for their usage and ceilings. Rest of the team just there. Don't think there's a need to get to any of those guys. And on Phoenix side, obviously Booker, Beal look great. Booker, Durant look great. Bill looks fine. He did get hurt tonight. I don't know if he came back yet. And then Nurkic is an interesting play there as a GPP option. And then obviously if Beal is out, you can definitely look to Allen off the bench at 5.3K. Or excuse me, who would start 5.3K. You'd be a little bit more aggressive. I wouldn't mind landing on him. But once again, as I said, there's a ton of injury news. It's a 12-game slate. Expect chaos. Expect it to be close to like a 400 fantasy point game, especially if some of the really chalky guys go off. But once again, a lot to build around. Fantastic first matchup here, Atlanta and Charlotte. You obviously got Miami, who's very, very short-handed here. other teams here are coming off of back-to-backs, as we mentioned, that could really affect the slates. Teams like, the Lakers possibly went out 80 or LeBron. You want to load up on at least 2 Lakers in if that happens. Obviously, it's a late game. You have to build around the fact that, late swap, late pivots. It's just a lot of chaos is going to happen for tomorrow. So I'd say play late on the slate. Make sure to like button and subscribe. And I will have updated core plays, my core 4 on my Patreon link down below. As I always said, these are kind of my early look plays. As always, as I just mentioned, a million different scenarios and news that we still have to wait for tomorrow. So this is just kind of early look. Hopefully, the breakdown helped a little bit. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.